Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz composer and violinist Jason Kao Hwang on the 2022 CD Unchartered Faith. Jason always explores the vibrations and language of his history, while compositions are often narrative landscapes through which sonic beings embark upon transformative journeys. On his latest release with Deane, he keeps exploring. Deane was called Dino by his friends, and he passed away before the CD was completed. Dino started his musical life touring with Tina Turner and eventually became a great innovator of electronic music, which is by any measure an extraordinary journey. Jason met him in the mid-'80s, playing together in various Butch Morris ensembles. He gets into the full story of this album, COVID, live shows, and so much more. Enjoy.
Good morning, Jason.
Hey, Joe. How you doing?
Hey, man. I'm good. How are you?
All right.
You know, Jason, it's so good to catch up with you because there were so many artists that I talked to as we kind of were going through the real raging parts of this pandemic. And I think we spoke in August of 2020. So we were at a we're at a very different intersection of space and time. So it's good to see that artists have music coming out and live shows and all of that.
Yeah, it's definitely the feeling. I still feel the transition of coming back. You know, being in the room with a lot of musicians rehearsing. I remember I went to Paris with William Parker this past February, and it was a big group. You know, I think how many were there? Maybe 15 people. And all of us were just looking around going like, wow, when was the last time we did this, you know?
Yeah, you know, and there's been weird phenomenon that goes into it. I think everybody on planet Earth is probably going through some level of PTSD, but I think with musicians, when I was really talking to people around the spring of this year, there was kind of a phenomenon where people were getting back in front of huge groups of people and kind of looking around at all these eyeballs, looking at them, and it was kind of daunting, you know, because it didn't happen for so long.
I think even for non-musicians, I think we all recognize how much we actually need social contact, you know. And as a musician, you know, just the type of music we make is dependent on human interaction. It's you know, everyone really missed it. So, you know, doing all those events we did on Zoom was quite surreal.
Yeah, it certainly was. In fact, the other night I went and saw a longtime drummer from Kansas City. His name is Arnold Young, and he's probably one of the best avant musicians that we have, and he has a group called the Rough. He played to a pretty good crowd, and it was amazing. I mean, just the amount of cats that were on stage, what they were doing. There was a vibes player, a French horn. He's on the kit, couple sax players, no piano. In fact, my wife was like, I just never see groups without piano. And I was like, you know, they make it sound right. But anyway, it was so good. Yeah, it was really cool. But it was so good to see all of that kind of happen in person. And I'm just so happy that I don't make these calls saying, hey, what are you up to? How are you surviving? It's more of how are you promoting and what are you doing live now? So it's a great transformation. Yeah,
I hear you. Right now, I mean, the only thing I like about Zoom is some of these meetings I have for teaching. I don't have to go into New York for that. But otherwise, the idea of doing things on Zoom is not that attractive to me.
Yeah. Well, Jason, let's get right into it. Uncharted Faith is your newest album, and I'm curious if this was something that was written over the pandemic or you held out until a certain time. How did this kind of come about?
Well, this was a pandemic project, and Dino, as we all call Deane, we've been friends a long time, since I think mid-1980s, when we both played with Butch Morris. And at that time, Dino was just completing his run working with John Hassel. I think he was trying to transition out of that band. But anyway, we keep in touch now and then, and he had just written a book, an amazing book about improvisation. let me see where the title of that book, Becoming Music, Conduction, and Improvisation as Forms of Qigong. And I highly recommend it to anyone trying to explore just the nature and creative process of improvisation. It's not a long book, but it has all his accrued wisdom, and he sent it to me, and so I sent him some of my CDs, my trio, the Human Rights Trio, and also the more recent one, my duos with Carl Berger, which he liked, and he proposed doing a duo, and he, in the pandemic mode in which we would exchange tracks. So all of the music is improvised, in his tracks and mine. I think the first step was Dino asked me to record about 30 phrases, short phrases, and he processes them through all sorts of technology that I am only superficially aware of, with granular synthesis and a variety of programs. And then he combined my sounds into his own unique sounds. Dino's art very much was being able to explore the essence of sound, what he called the DNA of sound, through sampling and processing. And he explored triggers or interfaces where he could play these sounds as a musical instrument. So as he described it to me, he could take a sampled sound and vary the volume, the duration, the pitch as a performer. And he was creating these lush orchestrations of just fantastic worlds. I know. After he sent me the book, he did a concert at the Red Room, a Zoom concert, and I first heard the kind of sonic worlds he was creating, and then we started collaborating on this project. So he sent me a number. I think the first first 5 tracks actually. He sent me, and that's the order of the CD. I started recording, overdubbing my improvisations on top of his. So even though it's when you use the word composition, for neither of us we're using that process of notating sounds and interpreting that notation and then and recording. It is composed though, in that if you take that as the notion of organizing that the overall creation, that is done in improvisation. So if one were to take Dino's tracks and measure it as far as sections and all that, I think it'll be kind of amazing. There's a natural symmetry and flow to what he's doing and hopefully to what I'm doing.
Overall, we've established obviously that the world's opening up and things are changing. How does this feel? Is there a level of this release that feels like a phoenix rising, a cathartic venture? What is the overall feeling of an album coming out with the chance of live music and kind of getting back to it?
For a lot of reasons, it's, I guess, cathartic. Primarily because, when Dino sent me the tracks in March, he didn't tell me he was ill. He had throat cancer, and he mentioned it to me, mentioned something about his health in May, but it wasn't until late June, when I finished my tracks, that he told me that he was in stage 4, and which then made me really try to finish everything so that he could hear it. It was really shocking, but we had a long talk. It's very remarkable. Dino had a strong belief in the spirit world, because he spoke to, when Butch Morris passed away, Dino spoke to him through a spiritual medium. And I said, really? And he said, the spiritual medium didn't know anything about Butch or the music or what he sounded like, but when he spoke to Butch through the medium, that person had all of Butch's speech patterns and language that sounded so much like Butch. It was startling. When his wife passed several years ago, he spoke to her as well, and the same sort of experience where the medium conveyed, intimate knowledge and vocal patterns of his wife. And so he really believed there was a spirit world. And so he didn't fear death. And he just saw it as walking through the door to another level of existence. No, he decided he didn't want to go through chemo and all that, and he wanted to be reunited with Colleen, his wife. And so, that's incredible. And I, conveyed that to him. So, in his last weeks, I tried to complete, I think I was able to complete 3 of the mixes. And Dino gave me some great insights on how the mixes could go, and I was revising them, and he said, okay, that's the right path. Things about stereo imaging and placement and things like that. And then in last July, actually it was 2 years ago, I guess. In July, he passed away. So it took me a while to return to this project and to make the release. So the recording has all those emotions, but also I'm on a mission that people hear what Dino had accomplished in his music, and so so that was coming out of the pandemic as well.
So, and you had mentioned already, getting out and performing in front of people. What has that been like? What kind of attention, what kind of appreciation have you noticed now that we're getting back and people are listening and engaging with live music again?
There's the experience of, I did a few concerts where I improvised on Zoom with my trio, and it was hilarious because there was so much latency. You had to play differently in a way in which, because it was impossible to play like in the groove. So you had to feel the pulse and sort of feel like that would happen. So to be back in the room and find to lock in rhythmically and just all that energy, psychic energy that goes back and forth faster than thought, to find that collective empathy in a band was really something that we all missed, and something more goes on with the live audience. There's definitely a difference between even playing in a rehearsal room versus a stage. I think somehow the performance really there is a vibration that you share with the audience. We that just crystallizes the performance into something as pure and true as possible at that particular time. So performance, the music needs performance to grow, and we all miss that quite a bit. And so there was performances. There's a lot of joy on stage and off stage, that we're doing it again.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm feeling the exact same thing. So
Yeah.
Jason, if anybody wants to pick up Uncharted Faith, learn more about your live shows, whatever's going on in your world, where is the best possible place for them to go?
I have a Bandcamp page under my name. My last name spelled Hwang. And then my website is my full name.com, so JasonKaoHwang.com. So it's JasonKaoHwang.com. And I list all my performances there.
Beautiful. Jason, it's been great to catch up with you. I'm looking forward to getting this out to the neon jazz community. So thank you for catching up with me again. It's so great to hear cats out there that have picked it back up and we're getting back to it.
Joe, thanks so much for keeping in contact and keeping our conversation going, and really for all the work you're doing to support the music and get all our sounds out to the public. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, LA, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Jason for his time, energy, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino on either iTunes or Spotify. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.